Dave, I want to ask you about Gaza. IDF has just approved plans for the conquest of Gaza, even though Satan himself, Benjamin Netanyahu, says he doesn't want to keep it. Like, we're going to just go in there but we're not going to keep it. You know, we're just going to
set up a Palestinian territory that is run by people who are favorable to Israel, is what he says.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the second part of this is the Israel-Iran war. The second part of that phase appears to be ready to kick off. A number of MAGA influencers and others were flown in to meet with Netanyahu and Mike Huckabee and this whole, posting on social media. So it seems like the propaganda is already being lined up for this next round of attacks against Iran. Where do things stand?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Gaza, according to Israeli media, the plans that they just approved involve forcibly displacing 1.2 million people. That's the estimate of Palestinian civilians in Gaza City. And that includes about 700,000 people who lived there before and 500,000 refugees from other parts of Gaza. And the report says that, they know that they're going to issue the evacuation order and some people are going to stay because where else are they going to go? Some people have been displaced like 10 times. It says that for the people who don't go, they're going to pressure them to leave by firing artillery into the area. So this is a monstrous plan that they have here. And then the plan is to go into Gaza City, capture it, and then spend a year destroying it. They frame it as dismantling Hamas infrastructure. But if you look to the north of Gaza City, Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, Jabalia, these towns and cities have been completely destroyed. And that's what they want to do to Gaza City. And yet, they're going to do that and then let them back in. I mean, it's just a joke. And we see Netanyahu also openly talking about, it's open that they want the ethnic cleansing. They call it voluntary migration, which again is just it's voluntary migration under the threat of death by starvation or bombing. So this escalation, which Trump appears to be ready to support, comes as, the daily death toll has been horrific, around 100 every day. People getting killed trying to get food, children starving to death, and adults. And we're actually seeing people starve to death every single day now, as much as Israel and its supporters want to downplay it. So if they go through with this escalation, those deaths are going to get much higher. And it's just, going to go into, I think, like the final solution phase of this genocide ethnic cleansing campaign. So you have that on top of the tensions with Iran. So I know, I'm sure you guys saw Netanyahu's recent interview where he said that he was very supportive of the idea of a greater Israel, which is really kind of just amazing to see him actually discuss that in an Israeli media interview.
Finally admitted, because they've been denying it for so long. So the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, right? Like, no, we don't want a greater Israel. That's a lie. That's just something that, anti-Semites say on social media. And here is Netanyahu admitting it publicly.
As a spiritual calling. He says it's a historic and spiritual mission.
Yeah. And we've seen this from members of his government, especially Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister. And they're kind of, he's openly talked about taking territory in Lebanon, Syria, all these places. And he's kind of framed as, the extremist in the government. But this is the prime minister himself talking about this. And this gets into the problem with Iran. Well, it's not really a problem, but from Israel's perspective, this is the problem. Iran is essentially the only country left in the region that can do significant damage and to Israel. And we saw that during the 12-day war. They tried to frame it as a victory, but Iran was able to do pretty significant damage with their ballistic missiles to Israel up until the final moments of the war. And, because they don't want anybody challenging their, territorial expansion when it comes to the West Bank, Gaza, southern Lebanon, Syria. So they just don't want any states intact that can threaten them. And so that is the real goal. Trita Parsi wrote a great analysis of this in Foreign Policy, kind of summarizing this stuff, saying, that was one goal of this 12-day war, was to make Iran similar to Syria and Lebanon, like a country that Israel can just bomb by itself with impunity. But they didn't succeed at that. So for this reason and other reasons, Netanyahu wants another war here, and he wants the U.S. to be very much involved, more so than just bombing the nuclear facilities.
Summer is here, and so are those visible dark marks, sunspots, other blemishes that the sun can leave behind, but not if you use the dark spot corrector from our friends at Genucel. It visibly fades away dark marks, sunspots, scars, and other signs of discoloration all over your skin. It's formulated with the patented LumaSkin, which is a revolutionary new ingredient, and Genucel's legendary base, shown to visibly reduce age spots, sunspots, and even undertone for a brighter, more youthful look. You'll be amazed at how it works, or your money back. So right now, get your dark spot corrector with every Genucel complete skincare package for over 70% off. Plus, if you enter our promo code Redacted at checkout for an extra discount, you'll get world-class skincare that works, guaranteed, or your money back. So order yours right now at Genucel.com/redacted. Again, you'll get the moisturizer for hydrating moisturize effect on your delicate skin during the harsh summer months, plus other bonus gifts and free shipping. Genucel.com/redacted. One more time, that's Genucel.com/redacted.
Because the propaganda is strong. I mean, even someone in our chat just said, yeah, but what about all of Hamas stealing all of these aid trucks, all the videos coming out of Hamas stealing aid trucks? So, I mean, people fall for this propaganda, right? I mean, can you first of all address that? Like, has Hamas been stealing aid trucks on purpose? And, how do they sell this whole thing to people? I mean, the support for this has absolutely plummeted. Young people in the United States who are Trump supporters do not want this at all. So they've completely lost the narrative.
Yeah, so the narrative from Israel is that Hamas, there's this large scale stealing of aid by Hamas. And we've actually seen reporting from Reuters, the New York Times, that said that there's actually no evidence of this systematic looting of aid by Hamas. But we have seen other armed groups loot aid. And the fact is, Israel maintained a total blockade on Gaza for almost 3 months and then started allowing, a very small number of aid trucks in. So right now what you see a lot is just crowds of desperate people basically raiding the trucks and grabbing what they can, and in some cases getting shot by the IDF. And some of the videos we've seen, I know there was one recently of like armed men on these aid trucks, but those were people acting as security against the looters. The fact is, Israel has destroyed Gaza, and they imposed, again, a total blockade where people couldn't get any food. The stocks ran out. So when you send aid trucks into that, you just send a few in, you're going to see looting and everything. And also, this was revealed recently. There's a gang in Gaza known as the Abu Shabab gang, named after its leader. In 2024, there was reporting that this guy, Abu Shabab, his gang, was responsible for the most looting of aid trucks in Gaza. And he actually, in the interview with the Washington Post, he admitted to taking from trucks. He claimed that they didn't take food, but he admitted to looting trucks. Well, guess who he is getting weapons from now? He's being armed by Israel, this gang.
Israel.
Yeah, the Washington Post surprisingly reported that. Right. Mm-hmm. They followed him around.
How these armed gangs are being funded and actually supported by Israel.
And protected.
And given weapons.
Yeah.
It's not Hamas, it's other groups. But now it's beautiful. It's beautiful propaganda, and it works like these sort of false flag strategies. Like, look at these armed Hamas group. No. Sorry.
If a guy, just the way like the Israeli surveillance, I mean, they have drones everywhere. Israel can see everything. At this point, if a guy in Hamas with a rifle like shows his head on the surface, he's going to get hit with a drone strike or something. Like, right. If you see armed groups kind of just out and about, generally they're backed by Israel in some way. It does seem like they've tolerated some of the clans, some of the tribal groups acting as security in certain parts. But overall, we've seen some reports, again, from Israeli media that they were backing these gangs in these places and even backing them in fights against Hamas and everything. So this is part of Israel's strategy here to kind of divide.
Yeah, someone in our chat says, yes, they are. Nerdvana says, yes, they are promoters of BS. Exactly right. That's exactly what Israel's been doing.
I want to ask, is there any way to revive the Iran has nukes excuse to go to war? Because it feels like the United States has kind of robbed them of that, because we are pretending that we took out all the nukes. And that was Israel's main use for escalation. How are they going to escalate with Iran now? Or is it just they don't need to because the world will not stop them?
Yeah, well, I think with the nuclear thing, there is a way, they have a path toward kind of finding a pretext. One thing that's happened, so Iran, there's no evidence that they had any nuclear weapons program, that they made any move toward building a nuclear weapon before Israel launched the war. And this was confirmed by U.S. intelligence and the IAEA, even though the IAEA, the International Nuclear Watchdog, they had a resolution that condemned Iran, accusing them of violating their non-proliferation commitments. And that was mostly based on alleged nuclear activity from like 20 years ago. So there was no threat of proliferation before Israel started the war. But they passed that resolution on June 12th. Israel started the war on June 13th. So it was very clearly like they piggybacked on that IAEA resolution. So after the war, Iran has suspended cooperation with the IAEA, kicked them out because they saw them as complicit in the war. And now we have France, the UK, and Germany threatening to reimpose the so-called snapback sanctions on Iran that were part of the nuclear deal from 2015. There were UN Security Council sanctions that were lifted. And they're threatening to reimpose these sanctions if Iran doesn't enter nuclear talks with the US, basically. And Iran's position is that they want assurances they won't be attacked again before they enter talks, which I think is a pretty reasonable position.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, to get back to the potential pretext, some Iranian officials, I don't know if this is their official position, but have said, if those snapback sanctions come back on, then we're going to leave the non-proliferation treaty. And, just as kind of a symbolic, they want there to be consequences to this action. So if Iran leaves that treaty, then I think that's the pretext that Israel is going to jump on. At the same time, I'm sure Iran is aware of that. But I think that is a potential path where they could start up kind of the nuclear scare again. And the irony, of course,
the treaty that Israel is not a party to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. Yeah. That's the big, I mean, it's.
They have nukes. They torture their whistleblowers who told us that. And yet they don't have to be a part of it. That's rich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone in our chat says, is this channel anti-Israel? No, we are vehemently anti-war on this channel. And therefore, the reason we had Dave DeCamp on, the editor of antiwar.com, we are vehemently anti-war on this show. I encourage all of you to read the website. It's a great website, antiwar.com. Please go and check it out. It's part of my daily reading.
Same. And I would say it's the only news outlet that has never once pissed me off by an outright lie that I can see. Nobody else has that medal but you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the content. None of us like it.
Yeah, I wish one day I would go to antiwar.com and it'd be blank. Like
yeah. Me too. Yeah, I could use some time off. But I really appreciate that. We appreciate all your work at antiwar.com. And Natalie, I'll actually see you this weekend at the Ron Paul Institute conference.
Love it.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Ron Paul is celebrating his 90th birthday and a big event, anti-war, pro-peace event, and you're going to be speaking there, and that's great. Great to see Dave will be there as well. And there'll be hundreds of people there watching as well. So, Dave, great to see you. Thank you so much for all of your work. It's really indispensable what you guys do. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.